Dragon Age Veilguard. I hope you're not a BioWare fan because it probably stings that they decide to put you in the trash.
So I've been trying to avoid news about Dragon Age the Veilguard because it seems like every time I hear more information about this game, I'm like, oh wow, that sounds very bad. As a longtime Dragon Age and BioWare fan, I've tried to maintain at least a neutral, wait-and-see approach to this game. But for me,
That is probably a bad choice, not gonna lie.
it's becoming increasingly difficult to do this, especially after a recent IGN article that revealed BioWare's approach to the
Grapples with the series. Fuck, right? A company, okay? Wait, is
players' choices in the series. In this video, I'm going to discuss the biggest red flags I see with Dragon Age the Veilguard that have made me very concerned about the quality of this upcoming title. So without further ado, let's buckle up, grab some iced coffee, and dive into the world.
gonna have back. It's
World of Dragon Age. Player choice is one of the core tenets of role-playing games that sets it apart from other genres of video games and other forms of media in general. Being able to make decisions that set the story on another trajectory is a truly special feeling that you basically cannot get outside of RPGs. And when it came to integrating player choice and consequence, no studio in the industry did it better than BioWare. With the Mass Effect and Dragon Age games, BioWare did something really ambitious. Your choices would not only impact the narrative of the current game you were playing, but could also have ripple effects into the sequels. The only other studio I've seen
yeah, which no longer is a thing because that sounds complicated, and modern writers are not modernly equipped for hard things. Okay, they're just there to get a paycheck and probably sprinkle in a lot of gender ideologies, pop scars, if you will. Beautiful, ain't it?
do this was CDPR with the Witcher games, but the choices that you could import into the sequels were nowhere near as expansive as Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Plus, BioWare did it first. So I was looking forward to see how BioWare would handle player choice in Dragon Age the Veilguard. And recently we got the answers in an IGN exclusive article about the game. But the answer was far worse than I could have expected. During the character creation screen, players will walk through a series of tarot cards and select decisions from previous games. But there are only 3 choices that we can make. Whether or not we disbanded the Inquisition, whether you vowed to stop Solus or save him, and who.
And by the way, I'm just gonna say it right now. Chances are that doesn't even matter. Because there is no way that that is anything more than a superficial thing. There is no way. There is no way these decisions are gonna even matter in Veilguard. Okay? The fact that they even allow you to choose them most likely means nothing. People, when this game comes out, people are gonna go make a character, choose Inquisition Gonzo, and then see what happens. And then make a character and choose Inquisition not Gonzo, and see what happens. And the difference is probably not gonna honestly exist. That's what this is gonna end with.
Who you romanced in Dragon Age Inquisition. Really? That's it? In Dragon Age 2, you could import your save file from Dragon Age Origins, and a number of your past decisions would be integrated into the story. For example, Alistair would make a cameo appearance as either the King of Ferelden, a Grey Warden, or a washed-out drunk, depending on your choices at the Landsmeet in Origins. Check out my video on the Landsmeet, by the way, if you want to see more about that. Isabella would have unique dialogue if the hero of Ferelden had a 3-way with her in Origins, and if Alistair or Zevran were also involved, they could chime in as well. Zevran would have a unique side quest if he survived the events of Origins, You would also get a unique side quest depending on whether you sided with the elves or werewolves in Origins. Nathaniel Howe would have a unique side quest if you completed the Awakening DLC, and Anders would have some unique dialogue if he was presumed dead at the end of the DLC as well. There are definitely more choices and unique dialogue than that, but this is just the stuff I can remember off the top of my head. But one choice that will definitely matter is hitting that like button and subscribing to Big Dan Gaming. I make videos about RPGs, and I'm getting really close to 200,000 subscribers. You could help me get there by the end of the year by subbing right now, and I'll be sure to deliver some top-notch RPG content and entertainment. Appreciate you, dude. Anyhow, in Dragon Age Inquisition, players could construct their world state in a standalone website known as Dragon Age Keep, where players could select their choices from Dragon Age Origins and DA2. While many of these choices didn't make an impact on the main narrative, they did provide some unique dialogue and variations that we wouldn't see otherwise. For instance, Varric would have dialogue related to the fate of his brother and what he ultimately did with the Red Lyrium idol. Liliana and Morrigan would have unique dialogue.
Dwarf opinions don't matter a lot, just saying.
If they were in a romance with the hero of Ferelden. Zevran and Talus would have unique war table operations. But some of your choices would actually be reflected in the main story as well. For instance, your Grey Warden contact will either be Alistair, Loghain, or Stroud, depending on your choices in Dragon Age Origins. But now that BioWare has decided to cast Dragon Age Keep into the Shadow Realm, none of this flavor will be possible in Dragon Age the Veilguard.
Well, to be fair, there's probably not going to be any flavor possible in Dragon Age Veilguard. The first dialogue option that's going to be unique probably is going to be if you choose top surgery scars. And that's gonna be cringe and very pathetic, and I wanna puke. Thank you, BioWare. Very cool. You deserve that. That's also a fact.
John Epler explained to IGN why BioWare was taking this route with the choices. Our philosophy when it comes to integrating past player choices and world states is wherever possible, we want to avoid contradicting what has happened before. We never want to invalidate your choices, he says. There's never a sense of, oh, that decision doesn't exist, but maybe we don't touch on it in this particular title, he says. Much like Inquisition didn't touch on
not existing. Saying, oh, we're not gonna touch on it in this title is the exact same as just not existing. Oh, I hate these PR people so much.
On every decision from Origins, much like DA2 didn't touch on every decision from Origins. It's kind of in the same vein of we're not going to contradict it. We just may not always reference it directly. Epler reiterates previous statements both he and the rest of the BioWare team have made about there not being an official canon when it comes to player choice in Dragon Age. Those choices, he says, are a large part of what makes Dragon Age such a personal story for fans. We don't want to ever imply that a decision is the wrong decision or the right decision, he says. We might joke about things like, oh, you let the Chargers die? Well, that's clearly the wrong choice. But again, it's not because it's canon. We want those stories to be personal. Translation, we don't want to be bothered with the extra work of accounting for past player choices, so we're just not going to do it. The one quote that really...
Yeah. It's pretty simple and obvious that this is the fact. And it's the fact because, well, this right here is all that BioWare cares about nowadays. Veilguard is nothing if not diversity, inclusiveness, woke DUI garbage. It's that first, game second. Very simple.
Stood out to me in this interview
probably we're gonna find out that Sweet Baby Inc. helped them make the game at some point.
Is we never want to invalidate your choices. You know what's a good way to invalidate player choices? Completely ignore them and pretend they never happened. BioWare is acting like they either need to canonize certain choices or not address them at all. But this is a false dichotomy, and it's not how they handled player choices in the past. In previous games, BioWare would write different outcomes based on the decisions a player could make. For example, in Dragon Age Origins, Morrigan would proposition the player to have a child with her in a magical ritual. If you decided to...
And you should. And you should, obviously. Good.
Go through with this, she would conceive a son named Kieran, who we met in Dragon Age Inquisition. But if you rejected Morrigan, she would not have a child, so Kieran was not present in Inquisition at all. And the cutscene between Flemeth and Morrigan plays out differently than if Kieran were there. And this actually begs the question, will Kieran be acknowledged in the Veilguard? Because we know Morrigan is going to play a role in the story. But whether...
Now, you know what's the funny part? They're obviously doing all of this because accounting for choices is so hard, time-consuming, blah, 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 we don't want to do it. But the funny part is they're probably still going to miss a plot, all of the existing things that should be canonized. They're probably going to mess that up, because they're just inept losers.
Whether or not she had a son isn't one of the choices we will make in character creation. So how will they address this? If they canonize Kieran, then that invalidates players who rejected Morrigan's dark ritual in Origins. But if they don't acknowledge Kieran at all, then that is a pretty big blind spot. Wouldn't Morrigan mention whether she had a son or not? By completely ignoring all but 3 choices from past games, BioWare is invalidating the player choices. They didn't need to canonize choices that would contradict decisions we made in the past. They needed to account for them and integrate them into the story where relevant. Sure, this requires more work in writing, but this is what separated BioWare from basically every other RPG studio. They were willing to go the extra mile for that attention to detail.
Yeah, and the irony is, at that point, they were doing good, games were selling, and, well, everything was better in life. And then they decided, let's not do that because reasons. And look at the outcome now. Ain't that strange? It's almost like effort gets rewarded. And being this much of a slop fiesta gets somehow punished. Very, very strange.
What made the Dragon Age and Mass Effect games special was seeing how our choices would ripple into the sequels. But in the Veilguard, we're almost losing that entirely, because none of the choices we made in Dragon Age Origins or Dragon Age 2, or even most of Inquisition for that matter, will be accounted for in this new game. And one more thing, what's wrong with one-liners? Not every past choice needs to be integrated in some grandiose way, and it doesn't need to be shoehorned in if it's irrelevant. But it was always cool seeing those variations based on our choices.
Oh, actually, this is also a big thing. So, nowadays, modern writers are complete morons, and they add a lot of dialogue. And dialogue sucks if it has no purpose. You know why other games, dialogue is enjoyable, and others will you want to just skip as fast as possible? That's because there's, in those games where you skip, there's just a lot of dialogue that is purely not needed. It's just garbage. It's just filler, but the person writing it doesn't understand they're writing filler, and they think that there's some kind of thought behind whatever the fuck they just wrote, and that the character needs to say that so they're understood or whatnot. No. Adding this much dialogue, from which only this little bit right here matters, makes the game worse, makes the dialogue worse, and kind of ruins the experience. It's very simple, and it's never wrong.
No matter how little. One that I just remembered pertained to Dagna in Dragon Age Inquisition. If the hero of Ferelden discouraged her from studying magic in Dragon Age Origins, she would mention that when you meet her in Inquisition. Moments like these are now impossible in the Veilguard.
It's like what? Not even a human, a subhuman. So, we should discourage it from existing in the first place.
Because of BioWare's decision to only make 3 choices relevant. Here are some comments from Mr. Holton's video on the topic, which give a sense of how the fans are reacting to this decision. We want the game to feel personal, so we will ignore all of your past choices. Okay? Feels like a massive slap in the face for the OG fans.
Everything so far has been nothing but a massive slap in the face for OG fans, which makes this even more hilarious. And honestly, I don't think the reality has set in for Dragon Age OG fans, or just fans of Dragon Age of what it is in general, that it's over. Welcome to Fortnite woke modern audiences and fuck the old guys. They're exchanging all the people who made this franchise a success For new people that don't even goddamn exist and they're not gonna stop playing Fortnite just because you copied the color palette.
Not only these choices are all for Dragon Age Inquisition, they're mostly all focused on the Trespasser DLC. I can't believe they put more attention to tying in the random comics and to Winter Night's short stories than their actual previous games that this is a sequel to. That last one is an interesting point. BioWare has seeded a lot of lore into external media like to Winter Nights, and that stuff seems like it will have more of a spotlight than the events of the previous games. The one thing that could be a saving grace for the Veilguard is how your decisions...
Okay, that's what just happened right there. Is this a joke?
Saving grace...
Is this a joke?
For the Veilguard...
It must be a joke.
Is how your decisions impact the narrative.
Also, yeah, the look of this is like, oh, this is a PG-6 game. Have fun. Okay, I'm done, Dan. I am done. That was Big Dan Gaming 10 out of 10. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.